Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hey everybody, you're listening to Tales from the Fandom, and this episode we have KP, also known as Salt Lake City's Green Arrow. He rocks the classic Ollie, and I have to say that he is a wonderful guest, as you are going to find out very soon. Just wanted to say thank you to Briana DeCoster, aka Utahime Cosplay, who was a previous guest on this podcast, for the recommendation, because KP was an incredibly fun guest to talk to, and I really hope that you enjoy his episode. Just one very quick note before we get into the podcast promo is that I am spearheading a movement in June. It's Women in Tabletop Gaming Month, and every day for the month of June there is going to be a podcast episode coming out focusing on a woman who is into tabletop gaming. So as we get closer, you're going to hear a lot more about it. I'm going to have more information all over the social media sites, but I just wanted you to be prepared for that month of June. There are going to be at least 30 episodes releasing, so I hope that you'll be listening and joining in with me, participating. And if you're interested in being a participant, reach out to me by email or Facebook or Twitter, and I will give you all the details. But for now, listen to a podcast promo, and then we'll be having the interview with KP. Thanks a lot.
Hey, are you a jock that likes comics?
Are you a nerd that likes comics?
Do you feel left out sometimes?
Well, then we've got the show for you.
I'm Imran.
And I'm Anthony.
He's the jock.
And he's the nerd.
And we host the Jock and Nerd podcast at jockandnerd.com. If you're looking for fun, entertaining, laugh-out-loud geek chat over all the latest Marvel, DC shows and news, visit jockandnerd.com.
Full spoiler podcast, lots of swearing.
You're such a jock.
You're such a nerd.
Oh, come on.
Shut up, nerd.
Okay.
And welcome to another episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today I'm joined by a guest who was recommended to me by previous guest Briana DeCoster, aka Utahime Cosplay, and I am joined by Salt Lake City's own Green Arrow, KP. How are you doing today, KP?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm number one, I'm excited to talk to you because sometimes people don't really, like, my previous guests don't really recommend others. They're like, oh, you know, there might be some interest, but Briana was like, you need to talk to this guy. And I was so excited, and you are probably one of the fastest turnarounds as far as me reaching out to someone and now recording with.
Oh, well, thank you. And I absolutely adore her. So thank you for the recommendation. I appreciate it. It's kind of a downtime for me right now. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I'm prepping for like cosplay, so I have a lot of free time. My wife and I own a small makeup, costuming, and special effects company. So when con season's not really hitting, there's not much that we're going to be doing as far as like going out traveling. So we're at home working on projects. So it's actually kind of a great time right now for me. So I was like, yeah, sure. This sounds like fun. Let's get together and talk.
Awesome. Well, I'm super appreciative of your time. And that's really cool. What does the company do as far as you and your wife do?
Okay. So my wife she went to Vancouver Film School back in 2010, and she learned how to do all these really awesome things. But when she was like 6 or 7, like her mom started teaching her basic sewing things because they came from very humble means. I mean, like her mom made all her clothes growing up because they didn't have the funds to like go buy nice clothes. And so my wife is actually a phenomenal seamstress, and my mother-in-law actually is a part owner in our business. And so, like I said, my wife she actually just got done working on a TV show called Yellowstone, and it will be airing next summer, 2018. But when she's not doing stuff like that, when she's not doing film, she does costuming. And so my wife's really good at patterns, and she's very good at seamstress work, but my mother-in-law has like 20 years on her as far as sewing goes. So they'll work together, and sometimes my mother-in-law's not the greatest with figuring out patterns, like coming up with them on her own, and my wife is. So together they're kind of this unstoppable seamstress juggernaut. So we do that. we travel around. I do kind of a networking and business type side of it. She can make masks. She can do prosthetics. Like I said, costuming. There's actually a local costume company up here called TaylorMade, and we work close with them where we'll actually like commission superhero suits and then give it to they'll buy them from us and people will rent it because they like the quality of our work over opening up a bag and then having somebody rent that. So it's a lot of fun. It's actually why we left Southern California for Utah, because Utah is a lot more small business friendly than Southern California, or California in general is. And it's allowed us this opportunity to pursue something that we love. If we can make a living and provide for ourselves, not doing the daily 9 to 5 inside of an office building, we figured why not? So we're pursuing our dreams. I mean, how many people get to say they get to travel the country with their wife and go to comic conventions as a job? So it's really fun. We love it, and we get to spend time with one another. And we're about to 2018 is going to be a big year where we're actually opening up for commissions from other cosplayers, things like that, to help them with some certain things. We have 3 or 4 already lined up, including a couple. We have one cosplayer that lives up here that she's pretty big, Joni Brosis. And so Joni has us commissioning a couple things for her. She's actually a close personal friend of mine. And so she's commissioned us to do a couple costumes for her. And it's a lot of fun. We're really excited for what 2018 is going to bring for us in the business. And then for me, what it's going to bring as far as cosplay goes.
That's awesome. That a lot of people don't get to do it, but that's almost living the dream right there.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's so cool. Awesome. So, but when we wrap up, definitely if you guys have a website or where to find you guys, yeah, definitely. I'll have that added in. One of the things that I love is they're cosplayers in general. A lot of people tend to go through a rotation of characters.
Sure.
And it's something where it's neat to see them, but you are like Salt Lake City's Green Arrow. That's your handle, and you rock the traditional Green Arrow.
Yeah, so traditional Ollie has always been my favorite. I don't know why. I've just always really liked the character. And so a little background on me, and most of my followers know this because I post it. And the first and foremost, as far as with my social media accounts, I try to make it a positive experience. That's not saying that I love everything. There are certain things that I don't like, but I try to focus on the positive of things, And so for me, through my social media, I want to try to make it, a positive experience, something that's good, something that's fun, something that's light. Because I feel like there's plenty of other stuff going on where we don't need that. You know what I mean? There's plenty of negative in the world. We don't need to have terrible things bombarding us every day. So for me, I try Transformation Tuesday, and as a lot of my followers know, I actually used to be really, really heavy. And so I was over 400 pounds at one point. And so the cosplay and Green Arrow has been a motivation for me while I was losing weight. I'd watch Justice League Unlimited, and I'd watch episodes of Arrow, and I'd watch these superhero things because I knew what I was trying to work towards. And even now, it's a constant motivator to keep me going and to kind of remind me what I'm doing. So when I go to the gym, I'm wearing Green Arrow shirts and I'm wearing Green Arrow hats, and it's just it's what I'm working towards. I want to physically try to work towards a healthier me. And if I can do it trying to have a physique of a superhero, which is not really obtainable, but it's kind of those things where you shoot for something in space and you wind up landing on something in space, and that's pretty incredible. So I kind of feel like that's what I'm shooting for, is it's going to be a healthier me. And then when you go out, and I've had little kids come up and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have muscles." And it's sure do, champ. I'm a superhero. It just kind of lends to the illusion. And I'm not saying that people that don't can't, at all. I'm just saying for me personally, this is what helps motivate me. And so as far as rotation goes, there's a couple of cosplays I'd like to do, but it wouldn't be my main focus. But for me, I'll just rotate out different versions of Green Arrow. There's the Longbow Hunters, there's the classic Neil Adams look with the hat, which I traditionally rock. There's Rebirth, there's Injustice 2. There's these versions that I'm working on that hopefully we can get some done by 2018, when I start doing cons there. But for me, there's so much behind it that just the character. It's a constant motivator. It's trying to get me to be that healthier version of myself so I don't revert back to the old me, because honestly, I wasn't happy. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is this makes me happy. pursuing this makes me happy. Wanting to, feel like a healthier, better version of myself, that makes me happy, not the old version that I was.
That's awesome. As far as Green Arrow goes, like, what is the draw to Green Arrow, especially the classic Green Arrow versus, what you see now in maybe like with the TV show? Was it something you saw as a kid that you got into comic book wise?
I mean, he was just always kind of cool. I think the thing that really sold it, because I think growing up as kids, we all have a favorite hero. And actually, when I was really little, my favorite was Spider-Man. And Spider-Man and Gambit from the X-Men. Like when I was growing up, the Spider-Man cartoon and the X-Men cartoon that were on Fox were like what I was exposed to first. And those were awesome. They were so well done. You go back and looking at it now, and the quality wasn't like the greatest, but for the time, it was really good. I mean, it was a stellar show. And then you also had Batman the Animated Series, and I liked Batman, but even at that point, the show was kid friendly enough. But even then, maybe the stories were sometimes going over your head with some of the things. And I was only like 7 or 8 when all that was coming out. So it's not like you can get really deep into it. Now, watching it as an adult, I can appreciate the crap out of Batman the Animated Series. That show will stand the test of time. I mean, I don't care who you are. That show's amazing. So
it is.
As far as those shows, though, like I grew up on those. And my dad would take me to card shops because he collected baseball cards. And so while we went there, I'd get like comic cards, like the Marvel Fleer Ultras and stuff like that. And then as I started to grow up and started to appreciate comics more, the stories, I started getting heavier into like maybe not just Marvel, but DC as well, like getting to know these characters. And so I started to fall in love with just all these characters across the universe. And it was actually in Justice League Unlimited where like they bring in Ollie, like in the very first episode, and he's like, I don't want to do this establishment, blah, blah, little man on the street. And I was like, this guy's kind of cool. Like, I love this. Like, it's kind of true. Like, you have all these fantastic things happening in the sky, and everybody's looking up, but they're not necessarily looking down at people that could be in need. And so the more and more I started to like research and read about the character and the stories, the more and more I fell in love with it. Even from like the angsty, like, 60s version where, he gets all like rabble rousing and, big man and establishment and stuff like that to, I loved the kind of humorous side behind him too. And he's a faulted character. Like as an adult, you appreciate the stories where, you love Ollie, you're rooting for Ollie, and you know that Ollie wants to be with Dinah. And then he does things where he just messes it up, and you're like, "Son of a, come on, Ollie!" And it's like, but he has like these great intentions, and sometimes he's his own worst enemy. And so I don't know. There's just something about it that I love, and even from the point where like it wasn't my favorite series, but Rise and Fall back in like 2010, they had where Roy Harper's daughter Leanne died, and so Ollie goes and avenges her. But in the doing so, he kind of ruins everything because he's like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm avenging my granddaughter. And then he pisses everybody off. By the way, he did it. And, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's like, it's 7 years too late. So, whatever. But it's just one of those things where he has the best intention, and he really does. And I love the buddy cop stuff with him and Green Lantern. And it's just, he's a fun character. And I kind of, like I said, I try to focus on the positive of things and having to do with like CW, talking about that. The show is good for what it is, and it's its own, Elseworld story, and I can appreciate that. If I had my say, there would be different things that we'd be doing. I'd make him a little more lighthearted. I don't necessarily like the doom and gloom and Batman vibe that comes from it, but it also could be Supermax, which was the Green Arrow movie they were trying to make several years ago, where like he gets captured in the first 5 minutes, gets thrown in prison, they shave his head and shave his face, and then he's like in a prison full of like super villains, and I'm like, I'm okay with, there being an actual Arrow, I guess. But it's fun. It is what it is. And to each their own. And I guess as a fan, we should all be appreciative that for the first time really in our lives over the past several years, we have exposure to things. We have merchandise available at our fingertips. And that comes with a cost for something that was very, very small and intimate for us as longtime comic book fans. And this is going to be a sore subject for people in Salt Lake. I grew up in San Diego. I grew up going to the San Diego Comic-Con back when it wasn't the circus that it was today.
Right.
You could go day of, buy a 3-day pass. You could buy your 3-day pass for the following year. But you didn't need to. You could just show up day of, wait in like a 20-minute line and buy a 3-day pass. And then the following year, it's like maybe you wait half an hour. And then it got to the point where you're waiting like 2 hours, but you could still buy your pass the day of. And then eventually it just got to the point where it became this giant circus. But I mean, so you grow up with these things and you appreciate it. And, but it's kind of been it's kind of been flooded by the masses. Not that it's a bad thing, but something that was very small and intimate to us has now everybody's got to it. So while things are now harder to, like San Diego Comic-Con is damn near impossible to get into, you trade it off for the fact that you have merchandise for the first time with these characters that you love. You have t-shirts, you have hats, you have all these things that 10 years ago, you didn't. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. So it's kind of this double-edged sword where you take the good, you take the bad, and that's just kind of the way that things roll these days. But I mean, comics have always been a part of my life. My dad grew up with some things, and so he kind of shared that with me. But something about Green Arrow, I don't know 100% what it is, like exactly, but I absolutely love it. I love the character. I love everything he represents. And it's a lot of fun. He's just a great character if you go back through the ages and check him out.
Yeah, it's amazing what something as small as, like even the first X-Men movie or the first Spider-Man movie, where you get those initial, like, who would have ever thought that we'd be living in a time now where Marvel has listed, that they have 25 more movies scheduled to come out in the next, 6 years, and they've got all of that planned out, plus what they've released so far. That DC Comics has their slate of comic book movies coming out in the next 3 or 4 years. It's an incredible time to be someone who's been in that small comic niche for so long and just get to see those characters just come to life. And it's totally true. Like the only merchandise that we could have found even 10 15 years ago is buying some the comic books artist artwork, or maybe someone made a fan made action figure off of a G.I. Joe or something along those lines. And now you have all tremendous amounts of variety of characters, even Funko Pops. There's so many out there.
Don't get me started on Funko Pops. I refused to buy them for the longest time because I knew what it was going to be like for me, and now my basement's saturated with them. So, it is. And think about it too. And I guess this is also something I think people lose sight of, and people have gotten spoiled. So if you really go back, early 2000s, the early Marvel movies, the Spider-Man ones with Sam Raimi, there were things that could have been improved, but for the most part, they were decent. They were fun movies. And at the time, though, we're like, wow, we've never seen Spider-Man on the big screen. Holy cow. And so then the Fantastic Four movies come out. Now, I wasn't a fan, but, whatever. It is what it was. And the Daredevil movie, a lot of people didn't like it. If you actually go back and watch the director's cut, they cut out all this storyline that actually made the movie make more sense, and so, but the Marvel movies weren't what they were today. Even the original X-Men movies, one was, for me personally, 1 was okay, 2 was okay, 3, let's not talk about it. But look at how Marvel has transformed and evolved their movies and how much better they've gotten over the years. And it's almost to the point now where people are getting spoiled because things aren't, I mean, if Man of Steel, if Batman versus Superman, if Justice League, and being a DC boy, I am not going to deny it, that those movies get a lot of hate. And I think people like to hate on DC now just because they think it's fun. And I'm not saying those movies are perfect by any means, but if those movies had come out in the early 2000s, people would have been pooping their pants. They'd have been like, oh my gosh, this is so great. But they've gotten spoiled by the caliber and the fact that DC didn't do exactly what Marvel did. And Marvel's movies, for the most part, and it's not a bad thing, they're sticking to a formula, and all their movies kind of touch on it. And why would they veer from it if it's been so amazingly successful? So, but DC, I feel like, is in the early 2000 Marvels. Let them work out the kinks. Let them get things out of the way, and then they're going to put out quality stuff. And when I say quality, I mean for the masses. I enjoyed the movies. I'm not saying that they're anything that's going to be out there winning Oscars and Emmys, but I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them for what they were. I enjoyed the different levels and tones of Batman versus Superman. Now, at the same time, am I saying the movie was perfect? Far from it. There were a couple things like the Jolly Rancher scene. Didn't understand that at all. Like, I'm like, okay, Lex Luthor's like feeding this guy an awkward Jolly Rancher. I don't get what's going on. But I did appreciate Jesse Eisenberg's like take on the character. Was it exactly Lex Luthor like we know? No. But I thought it was like this really like you can... his insanity is almost palpable with how much he's like crazed by Superman. And you do kind of get those tones of why he's afraid of Superman, but it's just not the same way that you are traditionally the big, bulking, bald Lex Luthor. So it is interesting. And I think that given time, DC will be able to put out stuff that the masses will find quality. And if not, I guess my feeling is, hey, I've had several movies that I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed a Batman and Superman movie. I've enjoyed a Justice League movie. So sorry, but I think eventually they'll be able to kind of get their feet under them. I think it's also as long as the studios let them do what they need to do. It's really tough when, you know, the head of the studio says that we have to put a 2-hour movie out so that we can show it multiple times in a day. Mm-hmm. And then you do lack on certain substance behind it because you only had 2 hours to tell the story. I mean, and a big story too. I mean, getting together an entire team and telling a coherent story in 2 hours, that's really difficult. But I still enjoyed the movie. So it'll be interesting to see what, you know, the future brings. And I'll be interested to see how Marvel is going to top Infinity Wars, because, I mean, at that point, that's the granddaddy. Now, I feel like how they're going to top Infinity Wars is the whole Marvel trying to get their hands on the Fox rights things that's going on right now. Because I feel like the only way you can top what they're about to do is to have the X-Men show up with the Avengers. I mean, that's the big one. So if they do that, I mean, the next villain they could have everybody tackle would have to be probably Galactus. Because if they get the Fantastic Four rights with the X-Men from Fox, they could do Galactus. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the future's going to bring. But man, Infinity Wars, that's every big gun in Marvel stable right there, pretty much.
Yeah, that was a thing that I actually saw on Twitter this morning, is because everyone that I'm following is kind of like touching on what's going to happen with Fox and everything else. And they said, wouldn't it be something if at the end of the Infinity War, that like the last like scene that you see is a discussion about it's time for the X-Men to finally come out of the shadows, and end with that, and then roll into what they've got coming out in the next like 5 years.
Exactly. And I guess the interesting thing there is, are they going to continue with Fox's X-Men, or are they going to start fresh and new? I mean, let's be honest, back in the day, they were talking about Danny DeVito playing, you know, Wolverine at one point, because he was the short, stocky, squatty, you know, like Wolverine physique. And Wolverine's supposed to be what, like 5'2" or something? He's not.
Yeah, he's not tall. Not the tall. Yeah.
No. So it'd be interesting to see. And at this point, I know people probably will, you know, hate this, but I'd be okay with them restarting the X-Men universe and going a different direction. For me personally, and this is my own opinion, First Class I enjoyed. I know it did not follow X-Men canon at all, but I still enjoyed it. And then I really thought Days of Future Past was a solid film. But the other ones I had to take for just fun comic book movie, except for Origins. That one you can leave now. You know, and then even Apocalypse, like I was a little let down because I feel like they had started to right the ship and I was really excited for the direction they went to. And then I felt like Apocalypse was a little too busy for me. But so at this point, I'd like to, and maybe not Deadpool, because Deadpool is solid. I mean, I'm not the biggest Deadpool fan, so I don't know. But I enjoyed the crap out of it. I felt like they got the spirit of the character perfect, you know. And so with 2 coming out, we'll see how that's going to roll. But I mean, aside from that, go ahead and restart your X-Men universe. Do it from the beginning. You don't have to do an origin story, kind of like what they did with Homecoming. But like, let's see what you got. Let's see what Marvel can do with the franchise now. But let's have them start fresh. So let's not have them pick up, you know, where Fox kind of messily left off. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do. And I know the whole thing is, oh, you know, we're going to, after Infinity Wars, we're going to do things that have never been done. And it's like, cool, but like, let's see what you're going to do. And I personally would love for them to continue characters. Like, let's say, you know, Robert Downey Jr. is getting up there in age. He's not going to be able to play Iron Man forever. And I know, again, an unpopular opinion is, let's not restart Iron Man. Let's James Bond it and just recast him. Almost like you're having a new artist come in and draw him. You got John Romita Jr.'s art does not look a single thing like Frank Miller's art. So it would almost, to me, that I think that would be almost fun if you looked at it that way. We're not recasting Robert Jr. or Downey Jr. or hating on his performance. I think he's embodied Tony Stark perfectly. But let's have somebody come in when he's ready to step down so we don't lose the character. And it would be like a new artist coming in and drawing him. An artist has left the series, a new artist has come on. And I think that's a fun way to look at it because it would be so different and interesting. So, I don't know. We'll see what they're going to do. I'm excited because, we get these cool movies that come out. I personally am excited for the new Ant-Man movie because that's been one of my favorite Marvel ones. So, we'll see how we'll see the future holds for us.
Definitely. And what everyone that has listened to the podcast knows, I send out a very short questionnaire just to get information on talking topics. And I wanted to ask about, you had made a mention on DC about DC Rebirth. And you said if people aren't reading because of the monstrosity that New 52 was, you would definitely tell people to check out DC Rebirth. Now, I've made it known multiple times on other episodes and even on other people's podcasts. I've never really been a DC person.
Sure.
I like some of the TV shows, and I love the animated movie side of DC.
Yes, so
but
good.
I don't know where to go for DC Comics. Okay, well, I should check out this or I should check out that. What's so special about DC Rebirth that I should check out?
So, and let's start off with this. So today's Wednesday, right? It's New Comic Book Day. So today is actually the end of DC Rebirth. And this is something that DC just announced over the weekend. And they're not rebooting and they're not restarting, but Rebirth has been going on for 18 months now. And so they've decided to go ahead and drop the moniker of Rebirth because it's not a new birth thing anymore.
Okay.
And they're now just calling it DC Universe. And so in 2010, they made the horrible decision to do Flashpoint. And Flashpoint, we have Barry Allen, he's back. They had Flash Rebirth and Barry Allen's back, and that's fine. I know a lot of people, and this is where things get a little complicated. People see Barry Allen from the TV show or the Barry Allen from the movie, and they think, oh, that's a cool Barry Allen. And to be perfectly honest, and this is all coming from my friend Will, who is, he's my brother in arms. He's like my best friend. Will is a huge Wally West Flash fan. And a lot of the things that people love about the new Barry Allen are all stuff that was developed and built with Wally West. And so because Barry died, Wally took up the moniker and then he became the Flash. And for a lot of us, that was the Flash we grew up with. And so when they did Flashpoint, they did it in the hopes that they were going to restart their universe with New 52. And it was a way... They kind of tried to make things a little bit darker and grittier and more realistic, almost like Nolan's Batman, to kind of fit with that. But I think the problem with that is there are characters in the DC universe that are dark. There are characters like Superman that are not. And they made the New 52 Superman a character that I did not enjoy. Now, there were certain aspects I did. Justice League had some solid story arcs going on there. And I liked the idea of getting to see the Justice League meet for the first time, kind of like in a newer, more modern setting. But there were certain things I didn't like. And as a DC fan, it was terrible in the sense that I missed a lot of my favorite characters. But it was great for my wallet financially because I was buying Green Arrow, I was bagging it, I was boarding it, and I was throwing it in the comic box. I wasn't even reading it because I tried reading first few issues and I was like, I don't like this at all. And there were a couple points where Jeff Lemire came in and he told some really cool stories, but it felt like there was some imposter character named Green Arrow running these stories. And so it was really tough. The art was solid and the story was good. It just didn't feel like Green Arrow. And so New 52 just went this really weird direction. It never gained traction. And so I think DC looked at it and said, we're losing readers. We're losing old fans. We're not gaining the new fans back. And so I feel like Rebirth, they looked at Jeff Johns and said, here, fix this. And he goes, okay. And it was this giant apology to the DC fans. For me as a Green Arrow fan, Black Canary and Green Arrow didn't even know each other. They never met in New 52. So in the Rebirth special, which is where you'd want to start off with if you wanted to, it's just DC Universe Rebirth. It's a one-shot like collection special. The original Ginger Wally West never showed up in New 52. They brought in a young black kid, and how they told it was it's Iris's nephew, just like the original. But he was like young and punky and angsty, and I was like, and for me it was like, well, that's not Wally West. Like, that's not Wally West at all. People are like, oh, you don't like him because he's not white. It's like, well, no. I don't like him because he doesn't have the attitude. If he had the attitude and was the quirky, funny, sarcastic, like almost Peter Parker-esque, like Kid Flash, I'd be okay. But he's not. I don't like this character. It's not Wally West. Mm-hmm. And so they bring back Ginger Snap Wally West, and I was so excited for two reasons. One, you're going to let the other Wally West stick around, and you're going to let him develop and build as a character on his own. He's going to bring some diversity to the Flash family, and I think that that's a wonderful thing. But now he's not burdened with carrying that on his shoulders of, I have to try to carry this character when nobody wants it, because it's not the Wally West that they know and love. So now he can be his own character. He can develop on his own. He can have his own friends. He can do his own thing. And they're doing that in Rebirth through Teen Titans. And so I've really enjoyed that, because it's like, all right, let's give this Wally West a shot. Let's let him do his thing. But then we also have the original Wally West back. So it's all stemmed around that. Wally was lost in the Speed Force when everything went down. And there's 10 years that's missing out of the DCU. Nobody knows what happens. Like in the Rebirth special, Green Arrow's sitting there and he's like doing something, and there's this huge thing, and he looks over and he sees Black Canary for the first time. He's like, oh my gosh, I know her. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how, but I know her. And she sees him and she's like, I know him. I don't know how. And I feel like he needs to be in my life. And so they start rectifying all these things. They bring back pre-52 Superman. So the big blue Boy Scout, the one that we all know and love. He's not wearing his underwear on the outside yet, but I have a feeling it's going to come back, and I'm okay with that. But that light, friendly, sweet Superman. And the thing about it is, I've never been a Superman fan. I have picked up every single issue of Action and Superman since Rebirth started, and I've loved every single one. He is married to Lois Lane again. They have a son, John, and from that, you actually have a new series called Super Sons, and it's Damian and John trying to figure things out, and they're kind of buddy copping around, and it's amazing. It's so much fun. Everything for me with Rebirth is going back to the basics of these characters, their feel. So Batman's still dark and broody and Batman and everything else, but it's the DC universe that I loved before New 52 came and changed everything. And they're starting to rectify and change things. So for me, what my actually, and being a Green Arrow fan, you guys know how big of a Green Arrow fan I am. My favorite series out of it right now, Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. It's so much fun. You have two sisters that are writing it, Julie and Shauna Benson. I absolutely adore them. And the fun thing is, DC brought in a lot of fresh talent with writers and artists, and they actually have gone out like for the past 2 years and have done talent searches where they said, hey, are you an artist? Send us your work. Are you a writer? Send us your work. Let's give us a resume. And they've done like an open casting call to bring in fresh blood. And Julie and Shauna were some of that. And they're two sisters. And if you've ever seen the show The 100, they write for that. But it's almost like Julie writes for Dinah and Shauna writes for Babs, and that you can feel it in their personalities. And I absolutely love it. And it's like, it's riddled with little nerd-like things. My favorite thing is in the very first issue, Dinah's doing something, and this guy's like, she's like holding him by the shirt. She's about to punch him, and he kind of mumbles something. She goes, that's a boring conversation anyway. She punches him, and I'm like, was that a Star Wars reference? It was. And so I started tweeting them. And the neat thing is that a lot of these people are kind of fresh and new to the industry. So they're willing to engage and interact with you. So I started tweeting them and they tweeted back. And I actually got to meet them at WonderCon down in Anaheim last year. And they came up to me like, oh my gosh, it's you. And they gave me this big hug. And they're like, it's like meeting a friend for the first time. Like, this is so wonderful. Oh, we've wanted to meet you for so long. And I'm like, me too. And so it was this really awesome experience. And I got to talk to them and they were the sweetest, just the two sweetest women, and I still interact with them all the time. I absolutely adore them. And the cool thing is it's a fun, kick-ass girl power. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that. It's an awesome girl power book. And so like for little girls who want to see really cool, like female characters be really awesome, I recommend that. For teenage girls, like I work at a shop on Tuesdays, at a comic shop, and I help get ready for New Comic Book Day, and we do bags and boards and everything. And I had a parent come in. They're like, yeah, I got me this teenage girl, and she's wanting like a really cool female thing. And I was like, you know what? Wonder Woman's cool, but it's a little kind of deep right now going on, and it's kind of hard to pick up where they left off. You want some fun, girls being awesome, being cool superheroes, get this. And so they picked up the first trade, and they came back the next week, and they're like, hi, we wanted to come back in because we need to be working today. We have to get the other volumes. My daughter loves this. She says it's so much fun. And I'm like, well, there you go. So Back on the Birds of Prey, I think, is actually my favorite Rebirth title. But then trickling down from there, like I said, Superman, amazing and a lot of fun. And I've never been a Superman fan. I absolutely adore Rebirth. Benjamin Percy is writing it, and he's doing such a phenomenal job. And I think the great thing about Percy is that he knows the canon of the characters enough so that he can pay homage to it, but still tell you a fresh story, so you're not just like rehashing. It's not like a Member Berries thing, like remember Green Arrow? Oh, I remember. Like you're sitting there, you absolutely just love it. And so it's a fresh new story with these fresh characters and these fresh takes on them. But at the same time, it feels like Green Arrow. So I'm getting new stories, but I feel like with a Green Arrow that I know and love. And the art in it has been stellar. You know, Otto Schmidt, Juan Ferreira, they have a couple guys that come in every now and then to do like a single issue here or there. But it's so much fun. I absolutely love it. And so for me, I feel like the DC universe is back to where I remember it and I love it. And so I know that they actually have just started... I can't remember what it's called now. It's basically they're bringing in the whole Watchmen story because somehow the Watchmen are involved with what happened for the 10 years missing. And so they have brought this in. I think Jeff Johns is writing it. And in the last issue, they had some things that completely changed and revealed for Superman's origin and where he comes from in Smallville. So there's a lot of big things happening, and we're actually about to get answers for the first time in a year and a half as to what's going on. We had Rebirth. We had the initial, this is what's going on. After, I think, a year, we had a quick little tease in Batman and the Flash where there was the comedian button, and they had it, and we're like, oh. So now with this, we're actually getting some answers. And so the first issue, actually, it's like I think it's 12 issues, maybe 6. I think it's 12, though. The first issue just left us with more questions. We're like, what? What is all this? But at the same time, it's going to answer some things. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see where it's going to go. Like I said, Rebirth, the moniker just got dropped today. It's going to be called DC Universe from here on out. But it's cool. They've gone back, and Marvel's done this too. But at the same time, I kind of feel like it's not as fantastic as it once was. But up in the top left-hand corner, they have the cover box where it's like the little like rectangular box that like they had like back in the 90s where it had like little characters' faces and stuff. Yep. So Marvel's doing that again, which I love because it's like it's an homage to my childhood. And I'm like, oh, I remember when they did that. And then DC has started that too with DC Universe. So it says DC Universe, the issue number, the title, or the issue number, the cost, and then underneath each one of those, it's the symbol of the character that's going to be like titling the series. So like Batman is a Batman symbol, Superman, Justice League, the little JL. So it's a lot of fun. I feel like it's the comic book industry being aware of what they've been doing for a while, because even Marvel was falling victim to this, and they've just started to do the same thing with Legacy. They're calling it Marvel Legacy, but they're going back and bringing back all these legacy characters that they killed off. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do, both of the big two, because I feel like over the past 5 years, they've both been struggling and floundering, trying to figure out what they want. And now they're starting to hopefully right the ships, because I want to start reading these characters that I love again. And for me, DC has definitely done that. For Marvel, I'm working at a shop, I get to see certain things. If you guys are the Venom fans, I know for me, actually one of my favorite things from Marvel recently has been Agent Venom with Flash Thompson. And if you are a Flash Thompson Agent Venom fan, check out Venom Inc. This coming out today. Pretty cool new character shows up. So I won't say any more than that, but if you like that character and what he did, we'll have to see what's going to happen from here. But I was really impressed. I was like, I'd cosplay that.
Now, on top of the big two, you are an indie comic guy, like, because I know that there's two comics that you listed that are very popular, and that's Robert Kirkman's Invincible and then Brian K. Vaughan's Saga.
Yes.
And I have read probably like 3 or 4 trades of Invincible, the first 2 trades of Saga, but I'm really behind on both of them.
Don't worry, I'm behind on Saga only because it's just there's not enough time in the day. But I've slowly been catching up, like a couple issues at a time. But I feel you. I feel like that's just we're all so busy today, and so if I had all the time to read all the comic books in my backlog, I'd kind of be concerned with what I'm doing.
What is it about the indie comics that you enjoy, especially like with those 2 titles?
I think sometimes too, like let's be honest, with the big 2, with Marvel and DC, they've been telling these stories and these characters for so long that sometimes it's really difficult to tell fresh stuff and still keep the spirit of the character. I feel like that's a challenge that they're having to do over and over again, and it's something they're fighting. With an independent book, you do tend to be able to do more creator-controlled stuff. So they're not chained by Marvel saying you can't do this with this character, or DC saying you can only do this with this character. It allows a lot more freedom. So for me, and we'll touch on Invincible first because it's actually ending. Kirkman basically said, like, look, I've told the story that I want to tell with it, and I could let other people write it, but at the same time, this is my character, and he's very personal to me, and I love him, so I don't want anybody else touching it. So instead of letting somebody else write it, he's going to go ahead and just end the series. And I think they're at issue 10 of 12 of it, like like This Is the End, I think is what it's called, or something like that, or It All Ends or something. But they're actually going to end the series, and I get it. I do. I understand why they're doing it. But at the same time, it is really sad. I feel like with the first 3 trades of Invincible, if you do the softbacks, you can also get a collector's edition. That's the first 12 issues. That first 12 issue story arc blew my mind. You sit there and you read it and you're like, this is so cool. And to me, it was like Superman-like powers, but with Peter Parker's high school experience.
Exactly.
And I loved it. And then all of a sudden things happen. You're like, what? Oh! And then just like these twists happen. And you're sucked in within the first 12 issues. You want to know more. You want to know what's going to happen. And one of the fun things about Kirkman is, and he was this way with Walking Dead sometimes too, but mostly I felt it really strong in Invincible when he's creating this universe. And this universe, if you think about it like a hallway, he's walking you down this hallway and he's showing you these stories. And sometimes he'll like open up a little box and say, here, peek inside here. This is a room that's like somewhere down the future, but just take a look. And you're like, oh, that's cool. What are those? He goes, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And you're like, oh, okay. So then you're going through, you're looking into all these rooms, you're seeing this story develop. And then like 40 doors down, you open this door and you're like, that's that thing you showed me like 20 issues ago. Yep. Now we're going to delve into it. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that's what they were doing. Oh, that's so cool. And so he did such a great job building up that universe and really giving Image a stronger superhero feel. They had other characters, but it really became the Invincible verse. And I'm sure that there will be some Image people that will fight me on that. But let's be honest, it is. I mean, all your favorite superheroes from Image have like hopped into and guest starred at one point in Invincible. So sorry, Spawn fans. It's a really fun superhero story. And for me, it felt like the really fun old, like 60s feel of a comic book superhero, but with a little bit more of a modern take to it. Like, it's not like, gee golly, holy smokes, Batman type stuff, but like there was just something very fresh and refreshing about the book as far as a superhero goes. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, that first 12 issues, it's really intense. Things happen that you don't see coming. And then you kind of realize that's Kirkman's way of writing the book. As far as Saga goes, I don't know. There's just something about it that was very, like, let's also start off with Saga. Mature readers, please. I mean, there are some things that happen and then you're like, whoa, hey, whoa. But it's a really cool war story. There's a war going on between these two factions, these two races. The two main characters, one is from each side. They somehow fall in love. They have a baby, and it's actually the baby. We're not sure her age quite yet, but she's retelling the story from when she was an infant to the last I saw, she was like a little girl. So it's really cool to see the way that this is progressing. It's really cool to see how the story's actually taking off. And it's just something different. I think Brian K. Vaughan does a really good job. And it's the same thing with like Why the Last Man, where it's not necessarily like a superhero story, but it's a comic book and it's a different, and the characters are so rich. The story is very, very deep. I'm not saying it's so metaphorical that you can't enjoy it, but it's something that's kind of a departure from comic books and capes. And if you really like a story-driven book with very rich characters, I highly recommend Saga. There's a lot that goes on, so it's kind of difficult to talk about without spoiling things. But the characters are a lot of fun. You fall in love with certain ones right away. And the twists and turns that come from it are like a lot. So it's one of those books that just keeps you engaged. I don't feel like you get bored with it, and you have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, Saga was a book that was recommended to me by one of my really close friends, and I read the book, and I'm expecting something, traditional. Okay, we're going to follow certain characters, and okay, then one of the characters gets killed off in the first trade, and I'm like, wait a minute, like,
yeah,
what's going on here?
Yeah,
that's not supposed to happen.
You were kind of excited to see what was going to happen with him too, and then all of a sudden he's gone, and but it allows a pathway to introduce these new characters. And so, but I agree. It doesn't fit that traditional formula, but you still enjoy the heck out of it.
Oh, absolutely. And going off of that there's a video game that you had mentioned in your thing that I really wanted to talk about, because I had watched some of the YouTube videos about it before it was even made, as they're like developing it. And then I've watched a few people actually playing it. And that's the Friday the 13th video game.
Yeah, so my buddies and I have gotten into this game, and there's about 6 of us that play. So if you're a Friday the 13th fan at all, I'd be shocked if you haven't played this game yet, or at least if you haven't watched the videos. And the fun thing is you can actually watch YouTube gameplay footage, and it's really entertaining. So it's a Friday the 13th game. It's an 8-person into a room multiplayer game. 1 person's Jason. 7 people are counselors. The 7 counselors are supposed to work together to either survive the 20-minute round, escape by several different various means that are provided to you throughout the map, or you can actually kill Jason. It's really difficult, but you can kill Jason. To kill Jason, there's certain things you have to do. You have to have a female counselor that sneaks into Jason's cabin, grabs the sweater that his mom was wearing the night that she got killed. You have to have Tommy Jarvis, who, what happens is when a player dies, they come back as Tommy, like somebody can come back as Tommy Jarvis, who is, if you've seen the movies at all, Corey Feldman plays Tommy Jarvis in part 4 as a little boy. And then in part 5, it was kind of this like disaster piece. And then in part 6, he comes back, and that's the one that's represented in the game. And so, and then the counselors have to work together. They have to knock Jason's mask off. They have to, like when the girl has the sweater on, you can push a button and she like talks to Jason like they do in the part 2 of the movies. And it kind of stuns him for a second. And then he like goes down to his knees, and then Tommy Jarvis has to come and chop his head off. So there's like certain things you have to do, and you have to work together, and you have to have certain elements to do it. If not, there are certain items spread throughout this map where there's a phone fuse that you have to get to put into a box, and then you have to call the cops, and then it's 5 minutes and the cops will show up. But Jason can place traps that can prevent you from doing that. He can actually destroy the phone box, so you have to go back out and repair it. You can put a car battery, gasoline, and you have to find keys, and you can escape in a car, but there's only 4 or 2 seats. There's usually 2 different cars. There's a boat, but you have to find a propeller and gas, and there's only 2 seats in that. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do, though, where like there's weapons you can find along the map. There's like firecrackers that can disorient Jason, but Jason also he's for the Friday the 13th fans that have seen this, there's actually like a new thing coming out where the guy who directed Jason Goes to Hell came out and said, yeah, I have the Necronomicon in there from the Evil Dead. So Jason's actually a Deadite. So it's implied that Pamela used that to bring him back to life, and or to put something on him so that he's not actually dead. So he's got supernatural abilities that help him be more powerful, and he doesn't actually die unless you do the whole formula to actually kill him. So it's really, really fun. And I know it sounds really like, wow, there's a lot you just said there, guy. I know. But it's one of those things. Watch the YouTube video because it's a lot of fun. My buddies and I will sit there, we'll play for a couple hours at a time. And if you have a room full of people, it's a lot of fun. You'll sit there, and my buddies and I will sit there and just like, hey, dude, like, where are you? Oh, I'm here, and I'm doing this. Like, as counselors, you can like hide under beds or hide in these big cabinets, and then you have to hold your breath. Like, there's a button you push, and your counselor holds their breath, but they can only do it for a certain amount of time. So if Jason knows you're in there, eventually he'll hear you. Like, we're sitting there, we were watching my buddy who was hiding under the bed, and all of a sudden his character out of nowhere just goes, I hope he doesn't look under the bed, and Jason just turns around and kills him in the bed. But it's one of those really fun, like, going around and playing with your friends and having a good time game. And even if you're not playing with your friends, you can still go and have a great time. But I think the thing that makes it fun is that every single map, everything changes. Nothing is in the exact same spot as far as like items. So the maps are exactly the same as far as the cabin placements, etc. But nothing was where it was the game before. They have 4 different maps. And then they have 3 maps that are smaller versions. So they have a total of 7. The counselors are all different. They have a bunch of different counselors you can choose from, and they all have different perks that allow them to be better at one thing than another. So if your counselor is really strong, really fast, and has high stamina, which means they can run around a lot and do things, you're going to want to be the protector. While this character he's like this like super fat, awkward, geeky guy with glasses. And he's like, oh gosh, I hope nothing happens. But he's really good at repair because evidently geeks are good at repair. And so like he can like do things really fast, like install the car battery or install the gasoline really, really fast. So you kind of watch after him, and then you guys are supposed to work together. Traditionally though, it's either there's like people that loved Friday the 13th, or there's like a bunch of 12-year-old kids, and they'll go and get in the car and like run you over, and you're like, oh, okay, well, all right, that's fun. But it is a really, really fun game. And then when your buddy is Jason, you guys get to screw with him all the time. It's so much fun. So it's just one of those indie games that it's starting to gain traction, but man, is it fun. And the nice thing about the company is that it was Kickstarter funded. I wish I had started it on the Kickstarter, because if you did, you got a special Jason that you can only get from the Kickstarter. And I really hope that they leave it that way. I'll never get the Jason, but I think for those who were on board originally, it's a nice thank you from them to the fans that have supported them from the beginning. And they are constantly putting out new material. There are 3 more Jasons that are going to drop before they're done releasing information. There's several more maps. They're coming out with new game modes where maybe I don't want to play online, or maybe I'm self-conscious about my Jason play, because Jason is really difficult to play as. So they're about to introduce it where you can play offline versus bots. So it'll allow you to hone your counseling skills. It'll allow you to hone your Jason skills, because there's something he does called shift, where basically it becomes like this ghost form, and he kind of moves, but he moves really fast. Mm-hmm. And you can like jet ahead of counselors, turn around, and then you have to turn it off, but you have to be real quick, because if you appear too fast and the counselor sees you, they're going to veer the other way. But if you can do it just right, you can land right on top of them and grab them. So it's really fun, the stuff that they're doing. And I feel like they're doing a really good job of taking care of their fans. The only thing I don't like is they don't have host migration. So if the person who is the host for the game dies early, or this is some of the immature stuff that's happened, is people will die early and they go, fine, I'm already dead, I'm not going to sit here and wait, and they'll drop, and then the game ends. And regardless of how much XP you've racked up during the round, you don't get any of it. So it kind of sucks. So they need to implement host migration. But aside from that, it's a really fun game. And it's a really fun party game, too, if you can get people over. My buddy's been coming over. His wife and my wife were best friends. And then my wife and I got married. His wife moved up here to Utah from Southern California. They met, they got married. We met him, and he and I became like instant best friends. So it's really nice, because he and I are like almost closer than my wife and his wife are now. And it's we give them crap for that all the time. Like, hey, remember that time that you guys were best friends and now we eclipsed that? And they're like, shut up. So, but they'll come over. They've been coming over for the past 2 weeks, and my wife and his wife have been crafting and doing all this Christmas crafting things. And we've set up like old school LAN party where like he has a TV next to my TV. We have our PlayStations, and we're sitting there playing next to each other. And it's like we're back in like 8th grade. It's great. But we'll sit there and we'll play for hours. And I love, and I know some people give video games crap, but I love the fact that we have video games that we can play online. One of my absolute best friends still lives in San Diego. We've known each other literally our entire lives. I was born, and then he was born, and we were next door neighbors, and we've been friends ever since. So I still get to play games with him constantly. I have a buddy in Indiana where I lived for a few years, and I never really talk to him unless we're playing video games. But then it's like things picked up right where they left off. So I love this aspect, and it's nice because through this game, we've all been able to reconnect and play, and we come on and so we have like a group chat on like our cell phones, like a text chat. And I'll sit there and be like, hey, anybody want to key, ma? They're like, yeah, we'll hop on and we'll play Friday the 13th for several hours. And it's just a lot of fun because it's allowing us to hang out like we would, but physically can't because we're not there. So it's a really, really fun game. If you're into video games and like especially fun party games where you can go out with your buddies and just have a blast, I highly recommend this game. These guys have done a great job. And if you're a Friday the 13th fan and you're not playing it, you at least need to watch the videos, because if you play the game and you go back and you watch the movies, or if you're really, really versed with the movies and you play the game, you sit there, the attention to detail is immaculate. It's absolutely phenomenal. And you can see the love that went into the game from the creators, down to cabin placement, down to certain things. Like we're sitting there and like my buddy during Halloween, we watched the Friday the 13th movies because we were playing this game. We were really big into it. And he's sitting there, he goes, oh my gosh, there's Pack and Egg Lunch. And I was like, yeah, I know, right? It looks just like it should. I know. They did a really good job with the video game. He's like, there's the stairs, there's this cabin, there's this, there's that. And it's like, there you go. So it's really fun. And the love from the creators, you can definitely feel it there. So it's fun. It's kind of different. And that's just where, I would recommend it. As you can see, I'm not that into it. I'm not that passionate about it, but whatever.
Yeah, it looks like a blast. And the things that you told me about how to kill Jason, I think I've only seen the Tommy character show up once when I was watching the different playthroughs. I had no idea about the sweater or the calling the police. Yeah. Nothing. Like I've never seen that, because the games usually are over within 8-10 minutes, give or take. Like that's it.
Well, and the counselors are getting better at working together. They kind of realize they can't do it on their own. But yeah, I mean, so to get Tommy Jarvis, you have to run around, and there's cabins, and there's one cabin that has this big antenna, and like it's a CB radio. And you run inside, and you have to hold down X, and the person's like, oh my goodness, you have to get out to Camp Crystal Lake. Jason's real. He's trying to kill us. Somebody help. And then that has been unlocked. Tommy Jarvis has been called. So when people die, there is one person that can come back and is chosen at random, at least I think it is. I don't know. Somebody can correct me on this. But one person is chosen to come back as Tommy. And Tommy is specifically designed to help the counselors survive. But a lot of times people will take Tommy and just escape with him because you get XP for surviving the round. And so what I've started doing is I'll go through and like I said, there's a phone fuse that you hook into a phone box, and you have to run inside the cabin. You have to find, and the hard thing though is that you have to find the phone fuse, and you have to find the cabin where the phone box is. Rarely are they in the same area. And then you have to go inside, you have to pick up the phone. And again, it's like 10, 15 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. Where you're sitting there, you're like, hello, police, help, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a 5-minute window where the cops take to show up. So you have to kind of keep on avoiding Jason or hide for 5 minutes. And then at one point in the map, the cops show up and you have to make it to that point. Well, Jason knows the cops are going to show up, so he'll transfer there. And then you have to get past him to get to the cops. Well, as Tommy, like, if the cops have been called, I'll go and like try to find counselors and bring them with me. Like, hey, follow me. Come on, let's go. And then I'll even if I'm at the bridge where the cops are waiting, I'll wait there if counselors are coming, or I'll run out and I'll like try to tangle with Jason, because Tommy's stats are he's got a 10 in everything. He starts off with first aid spray, a pocket knife to get away from Jason, and a weapon. So he's designed specifically to kind of come in as a tank to help this counselor survive, but he can die just as easy as anybody else. So, but yeah, sometimes kids will come on and they'll just, they'll get in and just escape with Tommy right away and not help the other counselors. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of team strategy. If the Jasons are bad, you kind of feel bad for them. You're like, oh man, this guy's terrible. But if they're really good, it makes it really difficult. Like one of the Jasons looks like Sloth from The Goonies, but with the hockey mask on. He's got like the big pointy, like weird ears. And so we call him Derpy Jason, and we're like, oh, this guy. And usually, because it's like you have to be a level 44, which is pretty high to get the Jason. And so usually those guys have been playing for a while and they know what they're doing, and the Jason stats are pretty high. And so he'll come in and just kind of wreck things. But like I said, it's a fun party game. There's a lot of detail and love for the creators. And if you can get a group of friends going, you guys can have a blast for hours at a time just playing this game.
That is so awesome. I like that there's games like that out there instead of having just the traditional like third or first person shooters or third person shooters where it's just something different. And when I remember when I saw the Kickstarter video for it, it was definitely like their goal was to make it something like I've never seen anything along these lines.
No. And they actually, if you go back and you look, they worked with the creator of Friday the 13th, the guy who wrote and directed the first one. They worked, so the guy Tommy Jarvis, the guy who played Tommy Jarvis in part 6, they actually brought him back and he voices the Tommy Jarvis in the video game. They brought in Kane Hodder, I think is how you say his last name, but he played Jason a couple times. The only actor, I think, to play him twice. He's the voice of Jason in the game, like the grunts and the things that happen. So they brought him in. And then like there were certain tiers through the Kickstarter because they really wanted to make it about the fans where if you did this, you got this. If you did this, you got this. If you pledge this much, we're going to go ahead and send you a special Jason that only you can get through the Kickstarter. And then if you pledged certain amounts, and they were higher amounts, we'll let you name one of the lodges. If you do this, we'll let you help us design a Jason kill. Because all the Jasons are different, and they all have different kills because they all have different weapons. So they're like, we'll let you design a kill. If you do this, we'll let you put your name on a tombstone in one of the graveyards with a little saying under it. So you're immortalized inside the game. To the point where they were even like, we'll fly you out for the launch party. You're going to meet all these people. You're going to meet us. You're going to meet the creator of Friday the 13th. You're going to meet all these people that are engaged with the game, the series, you know, the history of Friday the 13th. And then, you know, we'll set you up in like this 5-star hotel. And it was like really, really cool. So if you're a hardcore Friday the 13th fan, it's well worth it. But you can tell the love from them for the game and for the fans. They truly do appreciate what they did. So I've loved it. I'm really hoping that the second one, if you will, is going to be a Halloween one because I could see it being so much fun playing as Michael Myers, doing the exact same premise, just with characters and maps and the history of that series, because that's actually my favorite Halloween like slasher series is Halloween. So I'm like fingers crossed that they'll kickstart like the same company that did Friday the 13th, but Halloween, and it's going to be like probably like 5 years in the future or something, but I would jump on that in a heartbeat. So I don't know. We'll see. But there's a lot of possibility, a lot of fun. They have some new modes coming out. Like I said, they have other Jasons that are going to be revealed. They haven't revealed all of them yet. So it's a lot of fun. And if you're into that kind of stuff, if you're into just a fun party game where you and your friends can go enjoy it, that is something different. It's not the same first person shooter thing like everybody, you know, has been playing lately. Check it out. Just go watch some YouTube videos. But I'm putting my stamp of approval on it. I think it's one of the best games that have come out as far as like originality and gameplay and fun in years.
That's awesome. It's on my list of things to play, but between you know work and kids and life and everything else, there is little to no time for video games unless I make that time.
Oh, yeah.
But now I did want to ask you because you know I introduced you as like Salt Lake City's Green Arrow. You cosplay as Green Arrow. How did you start cosplaying? Well,
so the start, definitely, and it always has to come back to this because it is so crucial, is in 2014, I topped out at 417 pounds. And I was having heart, I was having health, I was having back, I was having knee, I was having ankle issues. To the point where like my ankles would get so bad they would swell. And like I couldn't walk on them. It felt like I was like walking on broken feet. And it's because I was having such bad like tendon problems in my feet that it immobilized me. And I had started to, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that I absolutely love hockey. I think it's amazing. And in 2013, I started playing. 2012. I started playing in 2012. And I was a big guy. I was like 365 pounds. And I'll tell you right now, 365 pounds strapping on skates and going out, good on me because it's damn near impossible. Mm-hmm. It's really tough. And so I lost about 25, 30 pounds just playing for about 6 or 7 months. But I was skating 3 days a week. I was playing a game 1 day a week. And I started to lose weight. Well, I hurt my knee. And it's an old knee injury I've had since high school playing sports. And it took me almost a year to recover from that because being on your skates, you're putting so much pressure on your knees and your ankles anyways. but also being big made it worse. So it took me almost a year before I could start skating again. Well, in that time, I got super depressed. I got super heavy, and I started to balloon back up. I got like almost 380 pounds. And so I started playing again. I dropped back down to about 360. And then again, I had another ankle injury, and it started to get to the point where I'd start working out, I'd start feeling good about myself, and I'd have all these setbacks, and my health started to decline. I had like terrible sleep apnea. Like I snored so bad. I felt so bad for my wife, and I would wake myself up with my snoring because I couldn't breathe. So 2014, my wife and I both looked into bariatric surgery. And one of the things that came with it was, look, this is something that can help and is a catalyst to get you to a point where you can take back control of your life. But you need to know there's a less than 10% long-term success rate for this. Okay. So if you do this, you have to make these lifestyle changes, because if not, you will fail. It's just that brutally honest. So we were like, all right, let's do this. So in May of 2015, I had bariatric surgery, and I had what's called the gastric sleeve. So my stomach is now in the shape of a banana instead of the shape of a kidney. And I lost a bunch of weight. I went from 417 at my heaviest down to 222 at my lightest. And that was in a little over a year. And I felt really great about myself. And I remember actually, I was about 285 when I went to Salt Lake Comic Con, and I was helping my cousin out at his booth. And I went by this artist, and his name is Nooligan. And I absolutely love his art. If you guys want to check him out, Nooligan. It's just this really different, unique, fun art style. And I saw this wildcat that he had, and I was like, what? That's awesome. And then when I came home, because we were still living in San Diego at the time, I told my wife, I was like, you know what? I feel so good about myself. I think I want to start cosplaying. Like I've always wanted to, but I've never felt comfortable because of my size. And she's like, all right. And so time went, I lost some more weight. I got down to 222. And I was like, all right, like I feel real stringy now. Like, let's go ahead and try to put some muscle on. So I started going to the gym. And I also, like, not that I wasn't doing other things before. I was still playing hockey and I was still doing cardio, but I hadn't started weightlifting. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to start doing this. So I started off slow, 3 days a week. Then I moved it to 4, 5, 6. And so now I currently go to the gym 6 days a week. And at that time, I went from 222 up to about 240. But my body fat had gone from 28% down to 20. And so I had tacked on all this muscle. And in the back of my mind, the thing that was going on was, dude, you know that there's a very, very slim chance that you're actually going to, like, long-term be successful with this. You're going to have to bust your hump. Mm-hmm. And so the cosplay for me is, so Salt Lake Comic Con 2016 rolled around. I told my wife like a couple months beforehand, I was like, all right, I think I want to do this. And she goes, okay, let's do it. So she made me this costume. It was absolutely amazing. And I found like some old combat boots that were kind of a greenish color. I went to like an Army Navy store. I pieced together all these things to make a bandolier and a belt, and I made my own quiver, and I made my own arrows out of wooden dowels with fletchings, and like it was a pieced together cosplay thing. And I was so excited about it. And I look at it now and I'm like, wow, there are some choices that were not probably the best compared to where I am now. And I'm like, this is a lot better. But I made a buddy who, he's a leathersmith, and he helped me do my quiver and my belt, my bandolier and my bracers, because let's be honest, leather is an expensive material to learn on. And so I was like, look, I'm going to hire you to make the leather pieces for me, and I will sit and watch and I will learn, but I'm not going to fart around and mess up hundreds of dollars worth of material. Let's do it right. So I did all this stuff, and the Green Arrow stuff, like I said, I've always just really been fascinated by the character. So I was like, let's do this. I like facial hair. I don't like myself without it. So I wanted to have facial hair in my cosplay. And I've had the curly mustache for I don't know how long. So I was like, let's do this. Because when I was younger, I was like, I like his mustache. I want to grow one. And so like at 21, I'm like, still can't do it. 25, still can't do it. 27, it was like, finally. So like I've had it, but even when I was big, I had it. So now that I was like the smaller version of myself, I was like, all right, we're going to do Green Arrow. Like, I'm super stoked on this. And there were some challenges along the way. The biggest one actually being the hat. My wife had to custom make a pattern for the hat because every other hat out there came at a point in the front and a point at the top. And that's not how his hat looks. So she took one of my, like, those like Ivy driving caps, like the newsboy cap. And she took one of mine and looked at it and said, okay, I got this. And she just made this pattern to make my hat. And I was like, what? So that's actually something that we're reformulating that to make it a little bit more streamlined and add a different material. And then we're actually going to start selling those hats as because I've had other Green Arrow cosplayers go, dude, I can't find this hat anywhere. It's like, well, ours is custom. So if you want, as soon as we figure it out, we'll start selling them. So that's something we're going to be doing in 2018 is actually selling my hat. And so we pieced all these things together, and I went and I had a blast. Like my first Salt Lake Comic Con, dressing up as Green Arrow, because I used to go as Quail Man to San Diego all the time, and it got great reactions. But this was the first time I was doing spandex, and having come from being such a big guy, it was really nerve-wracking. I had a blast. It was the greatest experience ever. And the thing is, I had 4 negative experiences the entire con. I had some guy walk up to me and say, wow, you need a bigger shirt. I had some lady go, yeah, like you work what did she say? Yeah, like those tights are working for you. And then I actually had 2 cosplayers that were in the cosplay gallery. They were 2 guys. One was a Deadpool. One was a Daredevil. Both of their costumes looked like they were made by like a costume shop. And we came walking up, and I knew no one at that point either. I had just moved up to Salt Lake like 3 months earlier. I knew nobody in the cosplay community. I didn't know anybody or anything. Wills actually flew up to be with me because he was so excited for this. Because we're brothers essentially, and he had been my motivation and my fitness coach and doing all these things. And he came up as Green Lantern. So we did a Green Arrow and Green Lantern, and it was the greatest thing ever. But that day he decided to do Superman because he loves doing Superman. The kids love it. He's got the physique for Superman without any kind of muscle suit. And so he does classic Christopher Reeve spandex Superman. So we're walking through Cosplay Gallery, and this guy looks at me and goes, oh, what's up, Hawkeye? And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he goes, oh, no, I'm sorry. What are you, Robin Hood? And I was like, oh, no, actually, I'm a Peter Pan Robin Hood mashup. And he's like, oh, nice. Could be worse. You could be Clark Kent. And he looks over at my buddy, and my buddy turns around because he hadn't seen him. And both their jaws just like dropped. And they're like, whoa, how did you get the muscles? And he's like, I went to the gym for the past 4 years and worked really hard on it. Like, this is getting really awkward, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave. But the thing is, like, I'll see Hawkeye cosplayers, and I'll be like, what, purple? Nah, I'm just kidding. Like, get in here. Let's get a picture. I want to get a picture of 2 cool archers. I love your costume. It looks fantastic. Like, I may, like, kind of razz with you at first, but I will always let it be known that I'm joking, that I love your stuff, that the dedication and the time that you put into it is phenomenal. Like, I'd have fun with it. These guys did not. They just straight up tried to like make fun of it, tried to make fun of my buddy. And so those were the 4 negative experiences. And the 2 cosplayers, my feeling has always been like, if you hated me then, just wait. Because I hadn't really been weightlifting all that long. And so now, like, I'm a lot bigger and a lot stronger. And, like, I look better in my cosplay than they ever will. And sometimes I'm at the gym and I'm lazy and I'm like, oh, what am I doing here? Oh, that's right. I'm going to show those 2 guys up. Hold on. Let me just go and bust out some more stuff. So I use it as, like, positive motivation. But for me, the cosplay, it goes really hand in hand with my love for the character, the comics, and the industry, and my health. And I know some people will think it's funny and silly, but it's keeping me motivated and honest. Like I said, there's less than a 10% long-term success rating for people that have had bariatric surgery. And that's why when people go, oh, so you cheated to lose the weight. Well, no, I used it as a catalyst to get to a point where I could take control of my life again. Think about it like this. You've been heavy your entire life. And I mean, to the point where I was having severe health issues. You get to a point where you feel like a normal human being. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I'm being very honest here. So I hope people don't take offense to this. I can go shop at normal clothing stores. I can have a normal life. I don't have to worry about going out. And if I go to the movies or if I go to a show or if I go to this, am I going to fit? This is the point in the life where I was at. And it was terrifying to me to have all that and then to lose it. To going back into being sucked back into this life that I absolutely hated. That to me takes more bravery to step up to the plate and have to fight for this life for the rest of my life. Because this isn't something I'll win. This is a war. I can win battles, but I cannot win the war. I win the war when I die and if I'm still healthy. That is literally the way that I look at it. And I know some people would think that's wrong, but it's the truth. I have to fight every single day for the rest of my life to make sure that I'm making the good choices so that I don't revert back to the person that I once was. And that person was unhealthy, he was unhappy, and he was struggling with a lot of things. So for me, this is a constant fight. This is why I go to the gym 6 days a week. This is why I put in 2.5 hours, and I scrape and I bleed and I sweat and I put all this effort into it, because if not, I can fail, and I can fail hard, and I don't want that. There was actually, so it's not like I'm perfect. Over the past month and a half, things have gotten better. But before that, I'd say probably 3 or 4 months leading to that, there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of things going on. It was crazy, crazy, crazy. And I hadn't made good food choices. And I was still going to the gym, but I wasn't pushing myself, and I wasn't doing the things that I should have been doing. And I tacked on about 10 pounds of just fat, like nothing good, just pure not goodness. And so I've revamped things. I've retweaked my workout. I'm actually working with a nutritionist / trainer up here. He's a good friend of mine, and we've actually righted the ship. And I mean, for the first time in a long while, I'm seeing very, very positive growth and gains in my body again, and getting things back on the healthy track that it needs to be. But for me, it was a kind of a reminder, like, this is how fast you can lose it, guy. This is how fast you can lose it. And it's kind of scary for me, because it's like, I don't want to go back to that. But at the same time, it constantly motivates me, because this is the new me. This is who I am. And I like involving my Instagram, my Facebook, my followers, my supporters, because they help keep me accountable. I'm now accountable to myself. I'm accountable to my wife. I'm accountable to my family, and I'm accountable to my followers. If I'm going to be this thing where people come on and they're like, wow, this is an inspiration. Wow, this is so motivating. Wow, this makes me want to go be healthier. How can I let them down? If I'm not making the right choices, and if I'm not doing the right things, how can I be that for them? And so it does put a lot of pressure on my shoulders, but at the same time, it's pressure that I need in order to keep the ship going in the right direction, because I don't want to revert back to the way that things were. That was such a terrifying and horrible place in my life that I don't want to go back to it. So for me, there's a lot that comes with the cosplay beyond just going out and having fun, going out and bringing a theme park-like experience where kids get to meet these heroes. It does so much for me personally that it's insane. When people say things like, wow, I love your cosplay, your story's inspirational, it's like, you don't understand how much that motivates and inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And it's definitely something where if people have not lived like through what you've lived through, as far as the weight and the surgery and the struggle and the battle, and like you said, it is something where for the rest of your life, it's going to be a constant war to make sure you don't have that slip back, that slide where, okay, you know what, I'm going to have this candy bar, or I'm going to drink this drink that maybe I shouldn't be drinking. And when people that don't understand that, like, that's the thing, is that some people will never understand at all. And it's truly something where it is such a change, but you have to be able to maintain that change for the rest of the life. Like your stomach is never going to be the way it was. It's never, you can't gorge on food. You can't eat the wrong things. You can't have like carbonated beverages. Like people are like, oh, why don't you just drink a soda? You can't drink a soda. You can't have a beer. You can't have a thing.
Yeah.
Because like, and they'll never those people will never understand, oh, you took the easy way out. No, it's not the easy way out. Like, I've basically set my life to be this. I have to make this change forever, or else like it just won't ever be good again.
Yeah, and so for me, like, soda used to be a huge thing for me, but I haven't had soda. Like, the last soda I had was the weekend before I went in for surgery, and I had myself a Dr. Pepper because I used to love Dr. Pepper, and I actually remember drinking it because I had weaned myself off slowly. Mm-hmm. I drank it and was like, oh, like I actually couldn't. I took one sip and I couldn't finish it. It was just too sweet. And so, could I have a soda now? Sure, I could. I could handle it. But the thing is, I also know how I am. And if I have one, well, I only had a little bit. It's fine. I'll have just a little bit more. And it's a slippery slope for me in that aspect. And I'm not perfect in 100 things. Like, I can have a cheat meal. Or, if I'm out and it's not my cheat meal, but I'm still having a good meal, and my wife has something that looks delicious, can I snag a bite to get a taste? Sure. Like, I'm not holding myself to like some outrageous, like, I live on kale for the rest of my life. Like, it doesn't work that way. But it's making sure that the decisions that I am making and that I'm doing don't slide into something else. And that's where I kind of got to a couple months ago. I was like, oh, I'm going to the gym. I'm doing the things I'm doing. I can have this. I can have this. And after like 4 months and putting on like body fat back on, I realized, no, I can't. Now, does that mean like, Thanksgiving? I had already started doing this new nutrition stuff. Thanksgiving, who cares? It's Thanksgiving. Go have fun. Do your stuff. It's not like I ate, I did everything I wanted to on Thanksgiving. And the next day I kind of felt it and I was like, oh, but it's not like I couldn't enjoy it. And Christmas is coming up and we're going to be doing stuff. And I know that that's going to be the case. My birthday was actually last week and I was able to go out and have like a nice dinner with my family. And I ordered whatever I wanted to, but it's kind of that moderation in all things. Like I don't go out and I can't have a double from In-N-Out, if anybody knows what that is. I can't go out and do that every single day. And that was something I was doing. Your body actually chemically does need like a cheat meal, even if you're eating healthy, to kind of reboot some things inside of it. And there's a whole science behind all this. I'm learning this with Brenton and doing these things, but, it's one of those things where, like I'm not perfect and I never will be, and I will lose some battles, but I can't lose every single one. If I'm faced with making these choices every single day, I need to be doing a great job. And there's a point where I can actually get to where I can maintain, and maybe things aren't going to be as drastic as they are. But to get to that point, I need to put in a lot of work and effort. And that's where I'm at like right now. But I'm noticing some things. Like my wife came home the other day with pizza, and she and my sister-in-law had it, and I wasn't even fazed by it. I had like this giant, delicious salad in front of me with all these really good goodies inside of it. And I know people would look at it and be like, that's good goodies? And be like, yeah, it is for me. Like, leave me alone. Let me just try to enjoy this. Okay. But like it's fun because I saw some of the progress that I'd made so far. And then I saw that pizza and I was like, the progress is much, much more worth it to me. And so there will be days though, where maybe the pizza will be worth it to me and I'm going to fold and have a slice of pizza, but you know what? That's okay. We're not perfect. And that's one of the things I try to get people to understand too is, look, you're going to make mistakes. It's just the way things go. Or maybe you're going to have a terrible, terrible day. And the only thing that you need is just some comfort food. You know what? Just don't let a meal turn into a day, turn into a couple days, turn into a week. Like if you fall off the horse, get right back on. It's like my buddy equated it to, if you dropped your phone and cracked the window, are you going to sit there and just like slam the phone until the window is unreadable? No, you're going to just take care of it and get it fixed. So that's the same way with how it goes to your diet, not necessarily dieting, but your diet is if you make a slip up, you know what? Recognize it and move on from it. But don't sit there and just go, well, I had that Twinkie, so I'm going to go ahead and eat myself a 20-inch pizza pie. It just doesn't work that way. But, it is something where, for me, it's nice to have the support and the motivation from my followers. But like you said, unless you've been there, it's really hard to kind of explain it and for people to understand it. I think that's really it is. I can tell you exactly what it's like, until I'm blue in the face, but you may never actually grasp that as somebody that's never experienced it. So it's funny. You worded that perfectly. So.
Well, if people are listening and they want to find you on the internet or follow your story or see your transformation, to get inspired to start their journey off, what are some of the best places for them to go to?
So if you want to go ahead, for me, there's a couple things, and it's okay. I'd like to do a few plugs too.
Sure.
My social medias, on Facebook, it's just SLC Green Arrow. On Instagram, it's SLC Green Arrow, one word. On Twitter, it's SLCGA. We haven't yet, but we're going to be launching Pinpoint FX costumes. That's going to be our business Instagram, where we're going to put up all our work and stuff like that. If you are interested in anything, go ahead and you can hit me up through any of my social media accounts, and we can talk about that until the other one is up. I have to give a big shout out and thank you to my wife for all the work that she's done in helping me with this stuff. Without her, I don't know where I'd be without this. I'd probably just be in some like Peter Pan looking costume. I would like to let people know Ivory Forge. You can find them on Facebook or Instagram. Ivory Forge LLC. They're actually my bow company sponsor. They do PVC bows. And if you want to do bow cosplays, you can reach out to them. It really does depend on your con, but they can offer alternatives. So like I actually have what's called con safe bows, and I've gone through a couple different cosplay safety verifications to allow me to go into cons, but my limbs are bent back, so they're already in the draw position, and then the string they attach, actually it stretches back, but there's not enough strength in it to actually bend the limb, so you couldn't fire an arrow if you wanted to.
Right.
But Ivory Forge, if you're looking for anything, they can do custom PVC bows where they can make it look like anything. As far as video game goes, they have several that have come from different various Skyrim bows that they have, and they do phenomenal work. The family, they're local here in Utah. They're very passionate about what they do, and they offer lots of guarantees, warranties, things like that, and they're very, very good at what they do. So if you want to go through them, there is a promo code SLC Green Arrow, all one word, all caps, and it'll get you 10% off your purchase. But they are a very, very wonderful company, and they're wonderful people. And then just, of course, if you want, you guys ever have any questions, I'm not a personal trainer or anything like that, so don't take my word as gospel. But if you guys ever need to just talk about things, you can always reach out to me. I try really hard. And I think it's what kind of sets apart my cosplay with a lot of other ones is I try really hard to interact with my fans. So if you ask me a question, I'll do my best to respond to it. If I ask a question, I sincerely want to know your answer. So right now, if you go to my Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, we're talking about DC Universe. And one of the things I want to do is, I know for a while there, Marvel did cosplay variants. I would love to see, even if it's not me, I think there are lots of phenomenal, talented DC cosplayers out there that deserve to see their stuff, and that everybody deserves to see it. And I would love to see DC try to do a DC cosplay variant. Mm-hmm. And so right now on my Instagram and Facebook, we're talking about that. I posted up a couple mock covers that I did celebrating the new DCU covers and the layout and how they're going to work, but also showcasing some amazingly talented cosplayers. And as more DCU cosplay, or as more DC Universe covers come out, I'm going to mock up some more with some of my favorite cosplayers that do a phenomenal job with their characters. I just want to make sure they're going to look right, that they have the right things on there so that it'll be as accurate as possible. But right now we have a Wonder Woman, a Green Arrow, of course, Batman, Superman, and a Nightwing. And so go check it out. But I want to know what you guys think. Would you guys like to see DC Universe cosplay, covers? How do these look? Do you think DC should do this? Do you not? These are questions I'm asking. And I want sincere, I'm asking you because I really want to know, not because I'm trying to get comments on a post. Mm-hmm. And then I'll do my best to interact back, ask you questions. And so I've done other things where it's like, hey guys, so it new comic book days today. What book are you looking forward to? I can tell you I'm looking forward to this. Getting to work on Tuesdays before the books come out at a shop and bag and board, I'll go through and I'll read what I want to read. And so there's a DC Universe holiday special out this week, and it's super fun. There's a lot of cool stories in there. There's actually a Green Arrow Black Canary story, and I'm super excited because it's Phil Hester and Andy Parks they did Kevin Smith's run. They did the art for it. So they're back, and it's like, oh, I love this. And so I tweeted out to them how excited I was. And there's a new cosplay idea for me, especially with the holidays around the corner. So I'm really looking forward to that. But, I try to be as sincere and genuine as I can through my social media accounts. So if you guys have questions, if you guys want to ask me anything, hit me up, let me know. If I ask things, like I said, I'm looking for that interaction. I'd love to hear what you guys think, and I'll respond back 9 times out of 10. The only time I don't is if I'm super busy or traveling and I post something and I just don't get around because I just don't have the time. But oftentimes I will try my best to go back and catch up and respond to everyone.
Awesome. Well, KP, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to record with me. It has been an incredible time talking about DC and Marvel and comics and Friday 13th and cosplay and everything else in between.
Well, I appreciate the avenue and the opportunity to do so as well. And, all these, you guys as podcasters and what you do, it's a lot of fun for us to get to come out and working at a shop back in San Diego. One of my favorite things on Wednesdays was to come through and talk to people on Wednesdays, talk to them about the books, what's coming out, what are you excited about, and just talk about our kind of geek culture. And I feel like podcasts are a great chance for us to do that without being, because you're on the East Coast, right?
Yep, in Orlando.
You're in Orlando. I'm in Utah. So we'd never be able to have these conversations and opportunities without this. So I thank you guys for doing this. It's like a nice little sit around the geek table and get to talk about the things that we love. So I appreciate you taking the time to allow me this opportunity.
It has been my pleasure, sir.
I do appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/fandoms facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.